Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with a mix of entitled people and revenge stories. In today's titled story, a bunch of entitled squatters broke into OP's home, forged a fake lease, and then even changed the locks. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Squatters broke into my home, forged a fake lease, and changed the locks. I don't know if this first part is just me and my area or people all around the country too. For reference, I live in Florida and own a few properties that I rent out. Big vacation area, so I actually tended to get renters coming for a few weeks at a time, almost year round. Now for me, the pandemic kind of put a big halt on that and most of my properties ended up going unrented. So I just decided to eat the cost and hope that soon business would pick up again. It was a financial strain but worth it so I could start renting again. Once things started to look better and the busy summer months were coming, so I wanted to go and give each property a nice clean so it wouldn't seem like they were abandoned for about a year. The first two houses went fine, but when I got to the third house, everything was different. For starters, there were cars in the driveway that shouldn't have been there. I didn't know if neighbors had just been using the space, so I thought I would find out whose car they were after. I tried my key in the door and found that it didn't work. I had no idea what was wrong and it seemed like there were voices on the other side laughing. So I knocked and rang the doorbell until someone came and opened it. I told them they were living in my rental property and they had to go. They didn't want to leave though, as most squatters, and instead slammed the door in my face. So I called the local sheriff and told him the situation and he was nice enough to send someone down. I explained that they had moved in during the pandemic and had been squatting for an unknown amount of time. They also changed the locks on the door so that my key could no longer get me inside. The sheriff rang the bell and started talking to the man. He claims that he owned the property and even flashed a fake lease to the policeman. This really ticked me off and I thought they were going to get an earful. But instead, the man told me that only in court could I present the valid lease and get them evicted. I was angry, but understood that this was the way things were set up to avoid real owners getting kicked out of their property by random strangers. So I waited and waited and waited. The summer season came and went and I was still unable to do anything about the property. I couldn't even legally sell it because the ownership was up in the air. I had spoken to lawyers and was told that the only thing I could do was wait and show my evidence of the lease and that I was paying the bills. I honestly was not even thinking about the bills for that home because they just automatically come out of an account. And since all those things were in my name, there was not going to be anything legally stopping me from changing those. So I decided that water and electric were not needed anymore and they were fully in my name. So I cancelled them. Keep in mind, I had been watching this house closely this whole time and the commotion that happened when the lights and water were turned off was beautiful. There was no way they could get them turned back because they couldn't pretend to be me since they didn't know who I was. They also couldn't put one in their name with their fake lease without being caught out very quickly. Still, they didn't want to give up and stayed squatting in the dark with no water. I had finally gotten a court date and found out that it was going to take another 4 months to get it settled. I knew that the house would be in a sorry state at that point and decided to take matters into my own hands. I called up some of my biggest friends who used to play football and asked them for some help. They were more than happy to agree and after I double-checked that it wasn't illegal, I went with my plan. I decided night would be a good time to do it because the house had no lighting anymore. So we snuck through the back and broke open one of my own windows to get inside. Naturally, the smashing woke the squatters up and I could finally see who was here. There was about 7 men living in the house and it smelled something awful. We did not give up though and my friends managed to strong-arm them all out of the house. There was nothing they could do but watch as I changed the lock to a key that I had and boarded up the broken window. If they could come and steal my house, I could steal it back. I had to make sure that it was going to stay that way until the court date though, but that wasn't a problem for me. I cleaned it up within a day and had my friends rent out the house even though they were not paying me a dime. Yep, I was having my own friends rotating squatting in that house so it would not get taken again. This way, if the squatters tried, we could just call the police and say that we are living there with a lease and the working key. And then the squatters would have to face a judge in court for the property. Honestly, I thought things would be over. When the court date arrived, I showed up and fully expected to go uncontested for the property. However, instead, the same man that opened the door was now in court looking way different than before. He was clean and had shaved and honestly looked like he could have been a home renter. I was not worried though, because I knew that I had everyone on my side perfect and there was no way a judge would give it to him. They started by looking over both of our leases and I was actually able to see it up close for the first time. It looks legitimate and the judge asked why the house was in my name if he was the one with the lease. He came up with the story of how I sold it to him and that while my lease is real, it is an old one and I don't own the property anymore. The judge seems to actually begin to buy the story until she sees everything I have. Monthly payments, water bills, electric bills, taxes, not to mention there is no public record or contract for the house ever being for sale. I guess he really thought the fake lease and a story would get him a free house. The judge obviously dismissed it in my favor, and he got in a ton of trouble for forging an official document. I have no idea if he went to jail or not, but I hope he did and tried to squat some other prisoner's cell. I would have sued him for the cost of cleaning the filthy place up, but honestly, if he was squatting, I doubt that he had the money to pay me back with. I was just happy that I got my property back and could finally start making money on it again. Even though the winter months were coming, I knew that I could hopefully get a few renters trying to come down here when it isn't so hot. And ripe stars, even though I am happy that everything turned out the way it did for OP, I am still sort of baffled that it took 4 months to essentially get rid of these people, especially during a pandemic. Squatters are one of the very real nightmares. Either way, if you enjoy stories about entitled people and especially squatters, then please don't forget to like the video if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much for your support, your help is very much appreciated and it helps me tremendously. The next one is titled Towing Revenge. Yesterday I go to Walmart to return faulty ink cartridges and also because it came with 2 black inks, not black, red, yellow, blue. Anyway, I saw some jerk decided to take his huge giant truck and double park illegally on the handicapped spots with no blue placard and another car was parked in the no parking area, like the area with the cross lines. I do have a disability, but I don't usually choose to park handicapped because unless I have a severe MS flare, I can walk so I don't feel the need to park close. Probably the 3rd time this week I go to that area often. So I am feeling really petty and also pissed because whatever handicapped person needed it. I decided to call the non-emergency police line to report the violation and give both plate numbers. The cops arrived pretty quickly. I told them what I saw. They also confirmed no handicap placard for the truck and let me go on my merry way. An hour later I am walking out with a bag of needed groceries and a receipt for my refund. Customer service had a long line and I see 2 tow trucks getting the illegally parked vehicles. It is at this moment the owners happen to come out. And I am close enough to hear though that they were yelling, so it wasn't hard to hear. Both try to argue. The cops tell one, "Ma'am, this is not a parking space and there are plenty of open spots further down." To which she goes, "But it's too far, I've only been gone 5 minutes. The guy in the truck also says he was gone for 5 minutes and the other officer is like, "That's funny, because we got this report an hour ago. Oh, and sir," as he gestures to the irate truck owner, "do you have a handicap permit?" "I will let you off with a warning." Guy grumbles, "No, I don't have the damn permit. Do I look like a cripple?" She looks like she sighs and writes a ticket and hands it to him. And he turned red and screamed, $2,000? Are you kidding me? She says plainly, "Take it up with traffic court, sir, and not me." The other lady got fined $500 for illegal parking, and both vehicles were towed, leaving their owners calling people to come get them, all pissed and angry. I walk to my car snickering to myself and drive home. Moral of the story, don't park illegally, especially in handicap zones. And yeah, ripe stars, I will never understand that logic that some people seemingly have. They think it is okay to park in handicapped spots simply because they only need 5 minutes to go somewhere. However, it seems like they don't realize that if everyone was doing that, then no handicapped person could ever park in these spots. I guess entitlement can cloud your judgment. The next one was posted by user CraggleTom and it is titled "When Evil Mama Bear Tried to Restart the HOA." Now, the neighborhood my mother's house is in had an HOA that was disbanded in the early 90s for the pretty stereotypical reasons: corrupt leaders, misappropriation of funds, etc. I really don't have many details on it since I was very little when it went down, but my mother had apparently been openly aiming for a seat on the HOA council for years. So she was really sore when the HOA was gone because she could no longer run for a position. Fast forward to 1999. Evil Mama Bear had been trying to quote the old HOA covenants to the neighborhood for years and insisted that the rules and regulations set forth when the HOA was active should still be abided by. Literally no one wanted to listen to her. So my mother started putting flyers around the neighborhood that detailed that she was restarting the HOA without their approval and would be its first new president. The neighbors ended up in an uproar over this and showed up to her public meeting. And there she was, verbally ripped to shreds, as nearly every single homeowner in the neighborhood not only denied their support of another HOA, but also made it clear to her what she was trying to do was not legal. My mother was incensed by this, and no surprise, she didn't even have my father's support, which was something she had initially been counting on, but he refused from the onset of her scheme. And when the neighborhood all refused to recreate the HOA, Evil Mama Bear went off on my dad for not being supportive of her. After she gaslighted herself into nearly being out of breath, my dad told her she was just looking for a way to lord over the neighborhood and he would never support that. She tried to argue with him some more, but he just ended the conversation and walked away. Somehow that still didn't stop my mother though. She went and contacted a sleazy lawyer about trying to get the HOA running again without the support of the residents. Her hope was that there was some sort of law that could reactivate the HOA on different grounds. The lawyer went through all of the old HOA documents and state laws over a couple of days and told my mother that there was nothing that could be done as it was not enforceable and that without the consent and signed support of enough people in the neighborhood, there was no way to legally restart the HOA. Then he proceeded to bill Evil Mama Bear for the time he spent looking through all of that. Since my mom hired the sleazy lawyer herself under the table, she had to pay him. But she hated paying anyone for anything because she was so cheap. Now, an important fact of note was that my dad had not trusted Evil Mama Bear with his money for years and no longer kept joint bank accounts with her. And she had no way to access his money, so she filed for a new credit card using his name and then used said credit card to pay the lawyer instead. My dad noticed a new credit card statement in his name pretty fast and nearly filed for fraud when my mom came clean out of fear. He demanded she pay off the credit card and then have said credit card deactivated. My mother didn't want to, but he threatened to call the fraud department of his bank on her. I still remember hearing the argument where she tried to claim that he couldn't do that because they were married and everything that was his was also hers. And that in return meant that she could do what she did and he would still have to pay. Dad called BS on that and said he would contest the charges and get the card removed from his name, which would have left my mother in serious legal trouble for fraud and debt collection. And so, Evil Mama Bear begrudgingly paid off the money owed and my dad cut the card to little pieces with scissors. My mother had the money to pay the lawyer all along, she just preferred to keep her cash and put any expenses she could on my father. However, he always stopped her and she would try to pull the shared assets logic because they were married, though that ended when they divorced. Evil Mama Bear still spent the next few years trying to quote the HOA covenants to neighbors, but she was always dismissed or laughed at every single time she tried. A few people started referring to her as President HOA Wannabe. To this day, no HOA has formed in the neighborhood again, and even if one did, they would never vote in Evil Mama Bear. I can only imagine what would happen if she tried to pull this crap in Texas after she moves there. Edit, I've had a few people messaging me that the lawyer I spoke of in the story that my mother went to was not sleazy just by association with my mom and just did what normal lawyers do. Well, he was known by reputation to overcharge people. And my own lawyer told me some time ago that he had first-hand experience with the sleazy lawyer because he knew him in person. The guy would intentionally take longer than needed to do anything so he could charge more time from clients. That, among other shady things he did, bit him in the butt some years ago and he shut down his office. And the next one is titled The Bricked Phone. Probably about a year and a half ago, my wife was in the market for a lightly used Galaxy S10 or S10e. Finally, while I was at work, she found a really nice one for a pretty good price, $200 on OfferUp. She jumped on it and drove out to a sketchy area to pick it up. The phone looked great, worked, and the IMEI checked out on the random site she checked it on, so she bought it. When I got home, I decided to double check the IMEI with T-Mobile and it came back as bad. But the phone still worked, at least for now, so I tried to get more info from T-Mobile, but all they could tell me was that it was not paid off and that it could be bricked at any moment. Okay, time for some revenge. I waited about 2 days, made myself a new OfferUp account and found that seller. On his page he had a slightly older phone for $150 and some kind of Game Boy for $120. I sent him a message and asked if he would take $250 for both, and he agreed. Now, I was not the biggest guy, 29 years old, 5'9", 175 pounds, but I boxed for a long time when I was younger, so I have confidence during confrontations. That night I drove out to the sketchy neighborhood and met up with these two 18-year-old guys in a Jack-in-the-Box parking lot. And no, I did not bring the bricked phone with me. I said hi and one of them handed me the phone and Game Boy. Okay, game on. I looked the items over for a minute, asked a few questions and then put them into my pockets. At that point, I aggressively told them that a couple of days ago they had sold my friend, didn't want to tell them she's my wife, a bricked phone. They denied it being bricked, so I yelled that it was a $200 paperweight and that this other phone and Game Boy are mine now, unless they have my $200. One of them quickly and remarkably proceeds to pull the $195 he had left out of his pocket and hands it to me. I gave the cheaper phone and Game Boy, which I don't think were even worth $200 back, and they started running fast. Once they were out of sight, I hopped into my truck and gunned it out of there. Success. And by the way, here's the kicker. Shockingly, at the time brick Galaxies were still worth nearly $200 for parts on eBay, so I ended up with almost double my money back. Really stupid kids. Anyway, I forgot a few relevant parts. When my wife paid them, they took the money and immediately ran away. That is what prompted me to contact T-Mobile, and once they said the phone was going to be bricked, my wife did try to contact the seller to explain the situation, but they ignored her. The next one is titled Coworker Revenge. Back in my high school days, I was a cook in a popular fried chicken restaurant that was also a taco restaurant. I was a good cook. And guys, if you can guess by the way what kind of restaurant this is, aka what the brand is called, then you get a cookie. Anyway, I was fast, I could manage cooking enough food with minimal waste even on busy days, but most importantly, I was clean. I rotated stock, scrubbed the cooler every weekend, and my manager basically just let me do my thing. It was one of my favorite jobs. On Sundays though, we would typically have 2 cooks to deal with the church rush. One day, Daniel, that's the nasty dude's real name, blew his hand full of snot and wiped it on his filthy apron that was still dirty from his Saturday shift. Jesus, he was so filthy. Anywho, I lost my mind a little bit and called him the nastiest dude I've ever seen, probably way too loud for the church folk, but he deserved it all the same. Anywho, fast forward to 20 years later and I stumble across Daniel commenting on a community forum about the pandemic. And also the church. He made the comment, "Since you feel that way, you need to go live in a plastic bubble. You can pick up the same germs going to church that you can at Walmart. Don't be so naive." And he accused someone of being triggered about some dumb stuff he said. This really pissed me off because my folks still lived back home and this dude was doing his best to spread the virus in my hometown. So I naturally replied along the lines of, "I don't think Joe Schmo, not a real name, is triggered. I just think he is rightfully concerned that the type of person to blow snot in his hand and wipe it on his apron in the kitchen 20 years ago may not possess even the most basic understanding of how diseases even spread." 2 minutes later I received a DM that said, "F off, dude," and was blocked by him. I don't think I've ever been so happy. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support and I hope to see you again tomorrow.